Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of ArtsBeat TV and radio here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach, your host. Our guest on this first half hour is Susan Beaudry, who is the Executive Director of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing this summer?
Remarkably well, given all things considered. The weather is something that I enjoy the heat. I complain all winter, so all summer I have to be quiet about the excruciating heat because otherwise I just complain all year.
The one thing that I have no shows to review and events that I have to do, so I get a lot of pool time in this summer. I've had the best pandemic tan I've ever had.
I think you and people.
Lots and lots of people. It's been a really tough time for all arts organizations, and everybody that we've had on the program said, gee, we thought that when we put a halt to our performances back in March, it would be maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month. For you guys at the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, it involved postponing or canceling the season from March on. And because the pandemic continues, you haven't been able to announce a season for next year. In terms of what's going on with the Springfield Symphony and comparing, Tanglewood canceled. The Boston Symphony has just announced that it will not do live performances in the fall. Hartford Symphony has announced similar. How does Springfield Symphony stand in comparison with other orchestras nationally? Is everybody doing the same thing?
Yeah, we are all doing the same thing. The Springfield Symphony Orchestra participates in membership of the League of American Orchestras, which I think you've already heard us speak of before, Mark. It's a national, and international actually, membership-based organization that is all about symphony orchestras. And this membership really gives us a lot of information industry-wide, who's doing what. It's a wonderful organization that really helps us. And I know the BSO, the HSO are also members of that. And what we're hearing across the country is everyone's doing the exact same thing. Some states where they've had either less effect of COVID or just had different laws, rules, and instruction to follow. Some places are performing in very, very small groups of musicians outdoors with small numbers of audiences. Massachusetts, we just have not been so fortunate to have been in a position to perform. We had started to talk about maybe doing something, the chamber series that we did last year at Twin Hills Country Club in Long Meadow.
Right.
We had reached out to them and asked them, hey, do you think that we could do an outdoor event there for about 100 people, given that was the guide the governor had laid out for us. And just as we started to plan, last week the governor walked the 100-person gathering back down to 50, where at 50 it's just really challenging for us to make happen because the gathering would include the number of musicians, the number of staff to support the musicians and to manage audience members coming in, as well as the staff of the golf course. So we'd be looking at maybe an audience of about 30, 35, which doesn't make a lot of sense for us to embark on. So we've had to put that on hold until the governor tells us otherwise.
So I know that when we last talked, you and your staff had put together a campaign to help the musicians who, many of them were put into dire circumstances because they are itinerant and playing with a bunch of orchestras, or they teach privately, or they teach at a high school or college, and all of that kind of dissipated. Are you still collecting for that, and have you been able to help musicians in any way?
We did end up collecting more than $20,000 for the musicians. That fund is still available at springfieldsymphony.org, and gifts can still be made for the Musicians Relief Fund. We had, last year, the end of last year was such a challenge for us. We were thrown into so much uncertainty, and we were in reaction constantly. Every day it seemed to be a new set of criteria which we were to work under. So when we had to originally cancel concerts, we had to refund a lot of tickets. So that was cash out of the SSO pocket. As you know, the arts world, it doesn't really work as cash in, cash out in the same concert cycle. Money is front-loaded in so that we can afford to put on the productions that we do. So it was kind of a financial burden for the symphony to have to do the refunds. In addition to, we had our own annual fund that we were fundraising for. So it was really a very hard decision to make, to shift our own needs, financial needs, to fundraise for the musicians, but we felt it was the right thing to do, that they took a personal hit where we took an organizational hit, and the board was very, very committed to making sure that we did everything we could for them. Because of that, we have, a donor base that's limited, the number of people who participate, and they were so generous to step up to give money to the SSO, to give money in lieu of a ticket refund. Many people donated their ticket money, and the Musicians Relief Fund. We just felt to continue to ask for money right now over the summer when so many people had been laid off or lost their jobs and their own financial situation was so uncertain. We just felt we did not want to be actively campaigning at this time.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Were your ticket holders and your donors generous in terms of donating back their tickets?
Very, very, very generous. Many of them, a majority of them, probably 85 to 90% of the people who had held tickets for concerts that were canceled returned them. But, no hard feelings to those who needed to have a refund. I understand not everybody's in a position to just part with money without reason. So the people who said, look, I really need the refund, we were happy to do it. It just didn't lessen the burden financially on the organization, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's been tough for every arts group. And I know that people that have bought tickets, I had bought tickets for a couple of shows that I wanted to see that I wasn't reviewing. And, I thought it was to donate the tickets was the right thing to do, even if it was tough, for me economically. Barrington Stage and Berkshire Theater Group in the Berkshires were able to work within the confines of what the Massachusetts guidelines were, and they got a lot of help from Actors Equity Association, which helped them develop plans to do safe rehearsals and safe performances. Mm-hmm. And these two theaters were sort of like they're the example that's now being set and being developed in other states. The Musicians Union, have they come to you, or have you been able to work out with them how a concert could be safely performed in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. There really is a very distinct difference between theater performance versus orchestral performance. You can do theater with a very small number of people, and it can still be an incredibly moving experience. Not that a solo experience musically can't be, but, we're a symphony orchestra and such. The works that we do typically require a large number of musicians on stage. So it's just a little more challenging for us to deliver the product that is the Springfield Symphony Orchestra's brand, classical music, orchestral works. Where I think the theaters have a lot more flexibility in the works that they can choose to play smaller numbers of people on stage. But besides that, the union has not really reached out to us. I think, again, kind of going back to the industry sharing information through the league, the unions are also watching for information. It's not that they don't want us to perform or that they're not in touch. I just think that, like us, everyone's at a little bit of a loss as to how do we do this.
Yeah, I had another question related to that, sort of. Let's say that it was possible to have an orchestral performance using 30 to 50 musicians, which you generally do. How would it sound if all of the musicians were spaced 6 feet apart instead of next to each other? And would the sound be the same? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's also a really great question. First of all, we never have 30 musicians on stage. I think the minimum number of musicians on stage is 50 to 55. So, we're typically closer to 60, 65, sometimes 70 and above, depending on the piece that we're performing. I haven't seen an awful lot of performance, actually I should say heard an awful lot of performances that are done socially distanced. We're going to try it, though. We actually, this week, I'm going down to Symphony Hall to measure the stage to find out if we did this and everybody was 6 feet apart, and this would, of course, not even include winds and brass, because they have to be 10 feet apart because of the aerosol as a result of how the instrument functions. So we are going to measure to find out if we were able to bring people here, how many people can we fit on stage? So I'm waiting to find out that information later this week as we get those measurements done. I'm happy to let you know as soon as we find out.
Yeah, I'm just curious. And what about a chorus? I mean, they say that singing really passes the virus along. So you'd be unable to have the symphony chorus perform.
We would be. I spoke with Nikki Stoya, the chorus director, because she wanted to make sure to keep the chorus members updated. And, I just unfortunately had to share with her, I'm like, Nikki, I just don't have any way to bring them on stage safely. They stand right behind the musicians. Again, that aerosol, the singing creates that aerosol. We've got, in addition to musicians, we would have people sitting obviously close to the stage, and it's just too risky. And we would hate to have been the cause of anybody to become ill. And we are especially conscientious, given we do have an older audience. The people who have been supporting us for years and years and years, who continue to come, our average age is above 55, and we're aware of that, and we certainly wouldn't want to selfishly perform and rush back to stage and not take good care of our patrons.
When you talk about the Symphony League and all the orchestras, when you talk to other executive directors, what are their biggest concerns at the moment, and how do they parallel what your biggest concerns are?
Yeah, their concerns are how do we keep our musicians playing, and how do we keep people safe while we do it? It's, unfortunately, the focus is pretty narrow. Or maybe fortunately, it's very narrow. It's really about how do we get back to doing what we do. So many people have come up with virtual performances and have done it beautifully. There's just a glut of music available right now. I know that you're heavily immersed in the arts world, and you're probably more aware than the average person, but you can't turn on your computer without getting some kind of ad or email about some orchestra somewhere doing a virtual performance. Places like the Boston Symphony Orchestra, who are a little bit more deep-pocketed than the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, have been able to videotape all of their performances going back several years. So they have an archive to pull from. So it's very easy for them to create a virtual program where you can watch pre-recorded concerts that they've done either at Tanglewood, at Symphony Hall in Boston, or other places, where the SSO is not that fortunate. We don't have video. We have audio recordings, but it's like listening to the radio as opposed to watching a performance.
Exactly. And there is a glut of culture online now, and in some ways it's very good. I would imagine that, for example, the Metropolitan Opera has free performances streamed every night going back in their repertoire, and maybe it will interest somebody who has never been able to go to the opera either because of distance or price. Give them the opportunity to attend a performance. That could conceivably happen. On the other hand, with this glut of stuff, I mean, people that were never interested in classical music are not going to sit at their computer to catch a virtual concert and things like that. But my hope is, and I don't know how you feel on this, I hope that with all of this online programming, it's going to make people want to attend live performances more.
That really is what it's about, isn't it? We're a live performance organization. I think it's a bonus when some of the orchestras have had the luxury of having videotaped performances available to use now. Who could have seen that coming, that need coming? But we really are about live performance. We want to get back to stage as soon as we can. The other thing, just to kind of comment on, if you've never been a musical person, or at least a classical music person, and you do get an email, you may watch it for a minute. You may not hang in there for a whole concert, which is kind of interesting because that person may never have bought a ticket to come watch a whole concert in person, but they may watch a couple of minutes on their computer. And that really is the beauty of the situation we're in now, is we have an opportunity that we didn't have before to introduce our product to people who may not have been curious enough to spend money on a ticket to come see it, to test it for themselves. So I am hoping that this glut of art and culture that's available to everyone, that everybody's maybe having an exposure that they wouldn't have normally had in an everyday experience.
I agree. And although I got to say, when I'm sitting at the computer and I have time to kill and I see all these performances, I generally, my mind goes downhill. Like the other day, I was working on a project and I wanted to see what was out there on YouTube and ended up watching Betty Davis sing the theme song to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which was as far away from culture as you could get. Susan, we have to take a quick break to acknowledge our underwriters and give you a chance and me a chance to refill our iced coffees.
Okay.
We're talking with Susan Beaudry from the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and you're listening to ArtsBeat on 89.5 FM WSKB or watching us on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. We'll be right back.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays, 8 to 10.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to ArtsBeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Our guest this morning is Susan Beaudry, who's the executive director of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. And later on in ArtsBeat, we'll be chatting with Michael McKiernan from TheatreWorks in Hartford, who are about to announce their revision to their season plans. So it's a good morning here on ArtsBeat. Susan, you've obviously been working remotely. How has this changed the way you and your staff work during the pandemic, and how you work with the orchestra members? I mean, obviously they're not working, but your staff is. So has working remotely changed the way you work, streamlined things, made it more difficult?
That's such a good question, and a lot of people have been talking about the benefits of working remotely. It's interesting that although you have the opportunity to get up when you're working in an office setting and go talk to someone sitting in another office, so much of what we do is we rely on email communication. And the only time we get together is for meetings, which we're still able to do, although it's via Zoom, which is the platform we're using. I haven't missed a beat, and nor has my staff. I have to say, all of them said that they're energized. They feel more balanced because they're actually spending time at home versus time commuting. When they take their lunch, they can walk their dog or throw in a load of laundry or go for a run. Things that just make a better life balance, and they can get back to their computer and back to their offices at home, and put in a really full day. You know, we're a nonprofit. Our hours typically are a 35-hour work week, which means we have a 7-hour work day. Which is kind of funny. It's laughable because I don't know anybody that works a 7-hour workday. But my staff says they're actually working longer hours. They're more productive, but more happily doing the work as a result of this balance. So it's actually worked in everyone's favor, although I have to say that I miss them. You know, there's always that personal connection. And although we work together and it's all about work, you get to know people's children and their pets and what they did on vacation, and there seems to be less social interaction amongst the staff because when we are together it's about a meeting or something that's going on related to the SSO. So I miss them as my friends. My colleagues are dear to me. They're wonderful professionals, and I miss them.
The thing that I miss the most working remotely, and I've worked remotely for years. I've always had a home office and run out to meetings, but I miss the meeting over a cup of coffee, which is completely gone. And I really dislike Zoom. You know, I feel inferior. My living room doesn't look as good as other people's living rooms, or my kitchen. You know, some people have better artwork on their walls, and I have a face made for radio. So when I see myself in a Zoom thing, I get very nervous. But I miss the one-on-one social interaction that comes with work.
I agree. I think that is the piece that is the unfortunate reality of being alone. You know, I live way out in the Berkshires, so I'm already pretty isolated when I am home. It's just the dog and I. So sometimes you can sort of be craving just company.
That's right. You live just up the road from Westfield, right?
Yeah.
Going up Route 20. What is it like up there this summer? Are there tourists gone, or are there people around?
Yeah, the Berkshires are much more quiet than a normal season. But, you know, there's still a lot of people who are second homeowners, you know, that the Berkshires is their summer place, and they come, and they've chosen the Berkshires because of the art and culture that's there. There's great restaurants and lots to do. But they've come anyway. The summer homeowners, the houses are full and people are out and about. The tourists have not really shown up this year, at least not those who are seeking culture. I mean, the Berkshires are a beautiful place, and there's a lot of outdoor kayaking and hiking and camping and things like that to do. But it is quieter than normal because the tourists aren't there. You know, Tanglewood alone, I think, attracts more than 500,000 people every year to the Berkshires. And without them performing, I think that has been a huge loss to everybody in the Berkshires, restaurants, shops, who really rely on that traffic. I also know,
yeah,
you know, because they spend a huge budget, the BSO does, advertising in, you know, the states around New England as well, bringing people here, which of course they didn't do this year because they're not performing.
I zapped up to Lee a couple of weeks ago for a very socially distanced cup of coffee with a colleague of mine. First of all, there was no traffic on the Pike. I was able to park in front of Starving Artist Cafe without looking for a space. And, you know, we sat outside, and there was some foot traffic, but it definitely felt different. Not only the lack of people, but the vibe was different. What about downtown in Springfield? The restaurants depended upon your performances at Symphony Hall and some of the games at the Mass Mutual Center. How is downtown faring during this pandemic without people coming down?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because the restaurants had to scale back what they were able to do too. it may have been helpful, and I'm just speculating here, it may have been helpful not to have crowds to have to figure out where to put them, and to jeopardize maybe anybody's interpretation of your service or your product, because it was a little overwhelming to have to either be doing takeout only or trying to figure out how to do seating. I've only been downtown a few times since maybe about once a month, twice a month. I've been going down just to check the office and do a few things. And Nadine's, which is across the street, seems packed. The bar is empty, which is an odd thing to see when you walk in there because it's such a place of social gathering. But the tables are full, and there are less of them inside and more of them outside. They've expanded that patio area there. And I think he has done a really, really great job kind of rising to the occasion. But it is quieter. It's still quieter. It's funny because as I've been driving from the Berkshires to Springfield, every month that I go in, the road's a little bit more crowded. So it does feel like there's a little bit more activity that's happening pretty steadily, increasing. Though many offices are dark, and there's definitely not as many people walking around downtown.
Well, Susan, we're out of time, and I want to thank you for joining me this morning. I hope that we get a chance to talk soon about the upcoming season when it comes back, because certainly I, along with many other people, miss live performances, and there's something special about the Springfield Symphony and going downtown and making a night of it. So I hope you can come back sometime in the fall, or hope that we're all up and running by the new year.
Yes, well, I'd be delighted anytime to come and spend time with you, Mark. And thank you for saying that. The Springfield Symphony Orchestra really is an experience, and we're so looking forward to retaking our stage and providing this beautiful product that we make for you sometime soon.
Thank you so much. We've been chatting with Susan Beaudry, who's the executive director of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. And if you're interested in the Springfield Symphony, as you should be, go to their website at springfieldsymphony.org and check out their Homegrown series, which is a kind of an online program where you get to meet some of the people that are the musicians and some of the behind-the-scenes people that work with the musicians and get their takes on certain things. Oftentimes, Maestro Kevin Rhodes is there to introduce the segment. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters here on ArtsBeat TV and radio. If you missed a portion of today's program or want to catch a previous edition of ArtsBeat, they're all filed on YouTube under the WSKB Community Radio channel. So make sure you go over there and check. When we come back, we'll be talking with Michael McKiernan from TheaterWorks. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to ArtsBeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. And on this half of the program, we have TheaterWorks' Michael McKiernan. Michael joined me last spring when we were doing this series about how we're doing and how people were coping with COVID and all of that. And we all thought for sure it was just going to be a matter of a couple of weeks. And Michael was getting used to working at home with a baby and a toddler and all of that good stuff. Well, Michael, it's several months later and we're all still working from home.
Yeah, it's so funny. I hadn't thought about it like this, but I guess not much has changed. I heard you say that, and I was like, I think I am still getting used to working from home with a baby and a toddler.
Well, you and I, we just make each other laugh. That's what one of the reasons I always love having you on this program. But when we were emailing back and forth to confirm this morning, you thought it was the month of March, and I thought, as I was interviewing my first guest, I said, if this was March and we had to relive the last 5 months, I'd probably be clawing my eyes out.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, my brain is just stuck because it was specifically March 15th we were talking about too, and that's like, I think that's the last performance we had in our space before we had to, shut down when the world stopped. So my brain, I think there's a part of my brain that is just still in March 15th.
Yeah, you guys have had a very challenging spring and early summer, but some of the online stuff, the concerts, the Get Sauced program with Rob Ruggiero, and the online programming's just been fabulous.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Speaking of March 15th, when the world stopped and we didn't know, we are a theater company. We bring people together. So how do we do that when we can't physically bring people together? We got to the drawing board almost immediately to say, what can we do online? What are the programs that we're currently doing that we can extend, that we can reimagine? So actually, I think I was looking at it today. April 1st was actually our very first virtual living room concert, and so that is basically like we have an artist, we throw them up on our Instagram or our Facebook Live, and they just sort of play like a 45-minute set just for our audience. So we tried to hit the ground running so that people didn't forget about us, to be completely honest.
But it seemed to work. I saw so much on social media about the upcoming performances, but I actually found myself scheduling wanting to see certain things, which there was so much online things and continues to be. I don't usually think that way, but I went, whoa, TheaterWorks is bringing back the cast of Next to Normal, and there'll be that event. Or I want to, see Beth Level talk with Rob Ruggiero, and I would actually put into my calendar a couple of the events that you did. And I know other people did as well. So obviously you're providing your audience with a lot of interesting stuff where, although other people are providing a lot of interesting things, I'm not sure that everybody marks their calendars to watch a specific program.
The way that you phrase that tickles me so much, because I'm going to bring that back to my team. Because what I and what Tanisha Dugan, our producing associate, tried to like really wrap our minds around was this like appointment date night viewing. We kind of wanted to bring back the date night. Because everyone was sort of like stuck at home, and what do you do when you can't leave? So we were like, we put that out in some of our marketing. We were hoping that it would be something that you could say like, all right, every Wednesday, 7:30, we're gonna have a nice dinner. We're gonna turn on the living room radio. We're gonna live our lives and just sort of celebrate each other and the art form and art. So that's awesome that you say that.
Now, I know that you guys are taking a summer vacation right now from all of the online programming, but is any of it still alive or archived anywhere?
Yeah, you can find it all through our social media channels. Every living room concert, most of the Get Sauce programs still live on our Instagram. You can catch highlights of Next to Normal, on YouTube, and shortly after this interview, you'll see it up on our website too, an archive we're working on, just sort of building something for our website. You can just check everything out that we've been doing.
Yeah. So, in other words, if people want to get a sample of possibly what's to come, they can go back and check it out at their leisure if they didn't mark it in their calendar and watch it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't marked it down already, hasn't been burned into your brain. No, yeah, we're totally, we're very conscious of that. We have everything still living, and we're going to bring some of it back in the fall too, right? One of the last things we did before we took this little hibernation while we worked towards the fall was we polled our audience to say, did you enjoy our programming? What do you want to come back? And everyone loves, our audience is so funny. We'll say, like, what do you want to have come back? And everyone says, everything. We love everything you do. And we're like, all right, well, I guess we'll try to bring that back.
You guys lost a number of productions. Every Brilliant Thing was on stage when the theater shut down, and then I guess there was a subsequent couple of productions. I believe that the musical Fun Home would have been running around now had you not, shuffled things. How did the audience? A lot of the ticket holders and things, did they turn back their tickets for refunds? Did they donate them to the theater? What's the audience support been like?
So we have the best fans in the world. I don't think that's any secret. Our audience has been really supportive and really giving with their time, through the programming we've been doing, and with their dollars, right, with their wallet. So we've been, we've seen a great deal of patrons essentially turn their subscriptions into donations. So we have, we rely on their support always, right, to get through this incredible moment in our history. And they've done a really wonderful job of sticking with us and helping us get through it, right? Because we can't do it without them.
Right. Right. So at some point pretty soon, you're going to announce your programming for the fall and the upcoming season. I know that Hartford Stage has canceled their entire live season,
right,
and the Bushnell's Broadway is pushing back to January at the earliest. What will hybrid season be like for TheaterWorks? Will it be online and live, or will it be plays and concerts? In broad terms, what do you think it's going to be?
So I sort of alluded to that survey that we went out to our patrons, and part of that survey was asking them about the programming we've been doing, but a large part of that survey was really focused towards the future and what their comfort level is in this world and what they were looking for, and almost unanimously everyone wanted theater. So we were like, okay, let's start gearing back up for this new world, this hybrid theater as you called it. What we're sort of phrasing this upcoming season is it's our season of thinking outside the box, because we have a little cute box logo in our name. And so we know it's going to be, we know we can't do nothing. So we are going to sort of roll out this membership. And this is like sort of first scoop, FYI. So
I'm excited to hear it first. Keep talking.
So we're turning our subscription essentially into a membership, and we are actually going to increase the output of plays. We're going to do 12 plays in the upcoming season starting this fall, and there's going to be some mix of like Zoom, StreamYard, some mix of sort of like Hamilton, where it's like performed on stage and we broadcast it out. And then, we'll see what it looks like, but we're at least planning for the possibility for the spring to have some kind of simulcast where there's going to be, some people in the space, and while you can also stream it from your home, because, we know that not everyone's going to feel comfortable coming back. So we want to make sure that no matter what, you'll get some kind of digital theater from us.
And you've got an audience, unlike other theaters where the audience skews much older in age and demographics. TheaterWorks has always attracted a younger audience. A combination of the choices of the plays and the ambiance of TheaterWorks and the concerts and things like that. Will you be changing your programming perhaps to address some of the issues that younger audiences are having? I know that Tanisha Dugan, one of your associates, was on the radio a couple of weeks ago with me and talking about the theater's need to include voices of color and more diversity and things like that. Do you think the upcoming season is going to open the doors to that?
Oh, absolutely. without getting into specifics of titles and all those details, part of the reason for expanding to 12 plays instead of our traditional 5, 6, including Christmas on the Rocks, was to create more opportunity across the board in terms of creative teams and playwrights and the actors that we'll be using. So we are absolutely trying to put our money where our mouth is in that respect. And that work actually continues across the spectrum of the things we're doing, right? Like, it's not enough just to say, look, here's this diverse cast we're throwing up on stage. We're really trying to change the TheaterWorks even internal culture in how the way we do business, right? And just being more inclusive and breaking down white supremacist ideals, right, that have just like seeped into every aspect of American culture. So it's been a really exciting, really self-reflective time at TheaterWorks. It's been pretty great.
I don't know your background and what you've done prior to the time that you got to TheaterWorks, and how long have you been at TheaterWorks? Let's start there.
Oh boy, I've been there for quite a while. I've been there for about 7 years, but my job has changed a bunch. I actually started as our artistic director's assistant, which is like a glorified internship. And then I made my way into the box office, and I was a house manager. I was like in the cafe for a spell, but they knew that my focus was marketing and for PR and advertising. So I just sort of like created a position for myself where I'm, Freddie, our marketing director's marketing associate. So it's the two of us.
Yeah. But you're very lucky in the fact that you're young in your career, and you've been able to create this great opportunity for yourself. Is this a learning opportunity for you to jump to something else down the road? Do you see your priorities and your interest because of TheaterWorks becoming broader?
Ooh, look at you trying to get the inside scoop. All right. That's I never thought we'd go here. That's so fun.
No, I mean, the reason I asked is most of the people I talk to when I'm interviewing them have been somewhere for like 20 years. They've been there a long time.
Yeah, that's great.
And you're the next generation of people that are coming up in the arts with diverse backgrounds and things like that. But I'm just curious. I mean, when I was at your age point, I had bigger dreams in mind and different cultural things that I wanted to do. And I never get to talk to people at your age that are moving up the ranks and what their future is. So I had to ask.
No, it's a great question. I just thought it was fun. So I'll give you like sort of two answers. And thank you for waxing a little bit of poetic while I got to think of them. So
I did that because you thought it was March, and I just let the clock move to August.
And you're like, oh my God, this poor kid, he probably has a baby crying at him right now. I got to help him out. So I'll give you two answers. I think my first answer is that there's a ton of opportunity at TheaterWorks, and we're only scratching the surface at it. I mean, I think with this membership, and I think with this year in particular, we have a great opportunity. And I know it's unfortunate, it's a way to think about it, right? With the theater landscape that's sort of struggling, but TheaterWorks has this great opportunity to sort of elevate its profile right now because we will be, performing. So there's that. And then I think just even personally, I am invested in Hartford. I think there's even more opportunity in this wonderful city to truly take that next step and be something really great. And I look forward to sort of like continuing that journey.
And you're lucky because you're working with such a great organization that doesn't seem to be chained in by bylaws and mission statement that says we're going to only do this. It seems like you guys are constantly exploring new options and trying new things.
Yeah, I mean, even in this this world we find ourselves in right now, we really are following the path of choose your own adventure, right? We control our own destiny in this work of anti-racism. It's even just start there. I mean, we could have just put out a PR statement that said, TheaterWorks believes in inclusivity and others, but we are really have been. One of the events we didn't mention was an event that I won't say the name of it because it includes a curse word, but it's F Up Nights.
Yeah.
And it's an event that started in Mexico that we've sort of brought to Connecticut, and it's we are putting our we're holding ourselves accountable basically out into the public, and we're bringing our process to the forefront to say this is the change that we're doing, right? So I've lost the thread a little bit. Where were we?
We were talking about the ability to think outside the box and not to be but the TheaterWorks has always been able
we're
to
choosing
do
our
that.
own adventure, right?
Yeah.
So we could have just done the status quo thing is all I'm saying, but we are really trying to bring this theater into the future, and when that's with our programming, with our anti-racism work, and that's with the way we treat each other as coworkers and as human beings. I mean, it's pretty great.
In terms of the pandemic, I mean, you've been working at home pretty much since the pandemic started. When we talked on the radio during that How We're Doing series, I want to think you had been home for like 4 or 5 weeks at that point. Do you miss the pulse of downtown Hartford, and do you miss the excitement of performances and audiences and that? Do you find it frustrating to be working at home, or are there joys to it?
There are absolutely joys to it. I'll start there. I've never seen my kids this much in my life, right? Just because, my wife is a teacher, so she has the summers off, so they're always around. And I've had them join me on Zoom calls and presentations, and I'll take a break to, help with lunch, or to my son's sort of getting to the age where he's like really into baseball, or like throwing a ball in the yard. So I mean, that has been absolutely wonderful and joyous and really, really great. And the flip side of that is, I mean, I do miss connecting with people, right? In a way that you can't connect online, right? And I miss connecting with our audiences, and the vibe of downtown Hartford. You still try to support local, and you still can, ordering out and stuff. But even just like walking downtown and feeling and seeing the vibrancy,
we
can't really be replicated from home.
Yeah, we try to support the local restaurants and get carry out a couple of times a week.
Okay,
and stuff
likewise.
like it, but it's not the same. I mean, I am still wary of going into a restaurant to eat.
For sure.
And, I social distance. I occasionally get coffee dates 6 feet apart from somebody, but it's not the same. It's involved a lot of, adjustment on my part. And I was telling somebody last week, when the Berkshire Theaters, when Barrington Stage and Berkshire Theater Group reopened, they were outside performances under a tent. I had real hesitations about wanting to be in that situation. I ended up not reviewing, even though I was starved for theater. I mean, it's been so long since I've been to a performance, but there are those little changes that the pandemic has brought upon us that I hope change us for the better. Ultimately, we appreciate people more, when we see them, appreciate our colleagues and all of that. But at the same token, I'm just dying to be outside and intermingling with folks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the speaking to starving for connection, right? And I totally get your apprehension. I love that they're doing it, because it's just like an interesting case study, right? As someone that works in theater, I love that they're going for it. In the theater that's doing Godspell, I just saw another write-up to that in the LA Times, and even they were saying, this could be a model for what we do in LA. And I love that they're doing it, but I am totally with you in that. The cautiousness, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to cover that, and Barrington Stage is doing a play called Harry, or was doing a play called Harry.
Yeah,
Clark,
the one-person show.
In fact, I talked with your colleague Eric Ort about that. We had a long chat. Maybe we should go, maybe we shouldn't. And then I realized that I'd be breaking my bubble at home to go. And, I started having second thoughts and all of that. But so I declined to attend. And now I'm having these things. I'm craving theater. I can't wait until I feel safe enough to go.
Well, and that's why with our membership, right, we are going to have that digital component so that you could, from the comfort of your house, like you probably have seen Hamilton, watch a TheaterWorks show. But there is going to be that patron in the upcoming spring that, is feeling a little riskier. We're seeing that right now with Godspell. I mean, I hear that's doing really well. So in our work, we're just trying to make sure that we do things safely, we do things at best practice, and okayed by the state. And that you're comfortable, right? So those are the things we're trying to keep in mind.
I mean, the one good thing that's come out of the pandemic is the fact that so many people have put online programming out there. I mean, I've gotten to see on Friday nights Broadway musicals, or like great performances. Did that play Anne with Holland Taylor playing Governor Ann Richards, and there was Kevin Kline and Present Laughter and things like that. I mean, the offerings and the opportunities there and the archival stuff is absolutely fantastic. But by the same token, it's just not the same as sitting in a theater with people and getting that reaction, because a good theater, to me, the audience and the actors are interacting, and that's what theater is.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that last part. But I will say, even just personally speaking now, I think the opportunity that this time has brought upon us is that I think that the rules with equity and with recording video and showing video, I think they were behind the times. And I think we as an industry have been forced to re-examine what it means to have streaming content, to have video content out there. I mean, a lot of theaters now are putting into their budget for when they come back, some like really high quality archival, like we had done with Next to Normal, that we hadn't really done elsewhere because, we weren't allowed to, right?
Aren't you allowed to tape a performance for archival purposes?
Yeah, but if, you can you can absolutely tape it for archival, but, most of the time that archival footage is just like one camera on a tripod in the back. Yeah. And it's really just for reference, so that if a designer wants to come and see what the space has looked like or how they utilize it, it's not worth putting out there.
Yeah, I mean, I had known that all Broadway shows were taped for archival purposes, and the tapes were at the New York Public Library at Lincoln Center. And if you were a reporter or a theater student and you were researching, you could go in and watch a Broadway show. So one day I had like 3 hours to kill in Manhattan, and I thought, I'm going to go watch a musical. I'll grab a bite to eat and, take it into the library. First of all, you can't eat in the library. And then I showed them my press credentials, and I told them what show I wanted to watch, and it was one camera in the back. It was so boring. I mean, so I knew what the set looked like. But, the stuff that's out there right now, there's just so much of it. I hope that people that are watching all this theater on YouTube or wherever they're getting it with great performances, that they think to themselves, wow, I really want to check out a live performance when I get the chance.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, like one of the other added benefits too is I think, theater has a stigma with it, right? That it's maybe not for a lot of people, maybe it feels a little high class. And that's one of the things that TheaterWorks, we try to break down the barriers too. But with the streaming, with the new prominent, force that it has, I think it's going to open the door for a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily have checked out our space or have seen something we've done. And I think that's across the board true. Younger generations who would more likely rather watch a YouTube video than come out. I mean, I think it's going to do wonders for breaking down those barriers to entry.
I certainly hope so. We're just about out of time, Michael. So I'm going to have you come back in the fall. When schools go back to remote schooling. The local swimming pools are closed, and pumpkin spice has reemerged. And all that. You and I are going to have to do another half hour of just schmooze because we're both,
and when we're allowed to be in the same space, I want to come do one in your studio. That would be fun.
You can actually, because the way the studio is built, it is built for social distancing. And Peter Cole's our chief engineer is in a separate room, and he can watch me through glass. And there are two studios where we can actually be in the same room, but glass partition. So you're welcome to come up here and do a show anytime you want.
All right, deal. Next time, pencil me in.
Okay, that's a deal. We're out of time. We've been chatting with Michael McKiernan from TheaterWorks in Hartford. If you want information on what TheaterWorks is doing, twhartford.org. And this wraps up another edition of ArtsBeat TV and Radio. I wanted to leave you with an appropriately summer song as we left today. And this is from the Broadway musical High Spirits, which was a musicalization of Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit, which he wrote. And this is the famous actress Beatrice Lillie singing a song about being on her bicycle. And in 1964, when this musical played on Broadway, she actually did ride her bicycle on stage. And if you can picture it in your mind, one of the backup dancers in this was Christopher Walken, who was a Broadway dancer before he became famous as a stage and screen actor. Anyway, Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. You've been listening to ArtsBeat Radio on 89.5 FM WSKB, ArtsBeat TV on WCPC 15. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Friday with another edition of ArtsBeat.
Give me a bike, give me a lane, give me a spin in the sun or the rain. I love to swoop, I love to swerve, I love each highway and byway and curve. Hop, 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 here comes a hill. Thump, 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 ooh, what a thrill. With a flick of the wrist I can turn, I can twist, I can lurch, I can list, I can fly. I send the old spokes round and around, feeling my wheel is a mile off the ground. Banishing care, banishing gloom, zooming as fast as a witch on a broom. Some folk like a swim or a hike, but what I like is my bike. If it's catching the grip you want, it's a ship you want. It's a ship you want. If it's worry and strain you want, it's a train you want. Or a plane you want. But if you're bored with scooter and Ford and all of that sort of thing, you'll probably agree with me when I sing. Don't let oxygen tone up your skin. Rush, rush, rush into the fray. Mush, 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 pedals away. If your heart starts to pound and your head spins around and you fall to the ground in the dust, just pick yourself up, brush yourself off. Stick out your tongue at the people who scoff. Rhythm's a thing, don't miss a beat. Whistle Ravel as you roll down the street. Trams and tubes may go on strike. That wouldn't affect